Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Doofus. I mean, Aaron.
Well, today, Aaron, we're talking about you. In that case, it's Doofus.
Oh, man.
You know, Doofus is such a stupid name. I'm not even talking about the game name. Even as an insult, it's a dumb name.
Like,
you know?
It's not when you hear that much anymore.
No. When you were a kid and people would make fun of you, what were the names that they would use to call you?
Well, the one that really bothered me was they, instead of calling me Aaron, this kid thought it was clever to call me Urine. I hated that. That one hurts. That one hit me low. Yeah, so I'd say that. What about you? Did you ever get any ridicule from your fellow classmates?
Oh, absolutely. Like, because I walk like a duck, so people would call me Duckfoot. Old Duckfoot walking down the hall.
I never even. You've said that for years. I don't think I ever noticed it until you mentioned it. I was like, wait a minute. I guess you do walk a little bit. I mean, I never even paid attention to it. Duckfoot.
Yeah. Other than that, people didn't really call me names. They just generally ridiculed me. Just by my very nature.
They knew you would beat them down if they gave you any sort of business, because you're a big guy.
That's true. In fact, the last person that called me Duckfoot was a kid in the band. Yeah. He was a junior when I was a senior. I won't mention his name.
Yeah.
But he was part of the group that I sometimes hung out with. And I gave him a good shove against the lockers, and he did not call me Duckfoot anymore. So
yeah. You don't want to have a
bear one too many times.
You don't want to have a duck foot shoved up your hiney.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Kids can be jerks.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I felt like I was hassled from the time I hit 6th grade until about 10th grade, when I realized I was bigger and I was done. Put up with a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
It was years and years of, because a big tubby dopey sort of guy, which is what I am, as you can tell. Nothing really changed. People can still ridicule me. It works. Same exact insults. But the thing that, that used to, it's funny. You could let that sort of abuse make you bitter or hurt you to the point, or make you an introvert, or you can, use it. I'd like to think that I'm the person I am today because I got hassled a lot. Because when you get hassled a lot and then suddenly you're not hassled, you realize how crappy that is. And like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, really, you understand that a niceness or kindness from someone, or a good word now and again, it goes a long way, because you were the guy that needed the kind word. And so when you need it, you understand better. And I think when you sort of have a childhood like that, when you grow up, it can make you a kinder and more respectful person. I could be full of crap, though.
Well, I want to talk. I agree with you 100%, by the way. That's why everybody loves you. That's why you're the master of the virtual man hug.
Oh, yeah.
Commodore Chronicles. As Commodore Chronicles so eloquently put it. One of the when I think about insults, I always think about you regaling me of the tales of the chud on the BBS and the old flame boards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were some of the common insults hurled around the flame boards on the BBS?
Well, I mean, it was as low and base and low as you can get. But I mean, it was even, I will say, by today's standard, it was pretty tame.
Mm-hmm.
But
like, were there any computer related insults, like you've got a 3.5-inch floppy? Ha 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 ha.
Well, I mean, you would people would just make fun of your crappy rig. That would probably be more common. Like, look at that. You're still running a 286. You loser. You're like, man, your modem is slow. My God, But it's funny, the flame boards, I think almost every BBS had them. Where you just go in there and screw around with each other. But every once in a while, the problem is when you're on a BBS, for the most part, you're locally connected. And so if you make someone particularly angry, and I saw this happen, they can come to your house.
Is that why Starman came to visit Chad?
No. Starman was cool. I never had trouble with him. But, like, for example, Chad's nemesis was this guy named Moon Pup.
Oh,
They didn't get
okay.
along,
Mm.
and they used to relentlessly hassle each other, and there was some physical altercations. The geek version, pushing her, that kind of, like that kind of stuff. But I don't remember there being any fisticuffs. That would have been hilarious.
Do you know the current whereabouts of Moon Pup?
I don't. I never knew him all. I never knew his real name,
Mm-hmm.
and I never knew. I never knew anything about him. He did occasionally come to because we used to have those BBS parties, and so
Mm-hmm.
stuff could go down, especially if people were dating each other and stuff. That's when it can get real ugly.
Moon
And
Pup wasn't the chick that the Chud brought home to make out with when you were sitting there on the couch.
Moonpup's a dude.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That was also decades later. The thing you're
Oh.
talking about, yeah. But no, I mean, there could be problems if if a guy dated a chick and he dumped her. You know how it is now with texting,
Oh yeah.
where you can it's just like public texting basically. It's like Twitter, it's like low end Twitter. Everyone can see you badmouth your old ex, and talk about how great the new girl is, including your old ex. Gets mad, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's
So
not good.
it seems quaint by today's standards. I was just watching. I don't know if you caught if you were on social media at all this past week at a local, I think it was a Phillies game. A foul ball. This guy ran over and took a foul ball and gave it to his son, whose birthday it was. And this chick that was sitting near where the ball hit was so mad, she came over and gave him the business. And it was in a cartoony way. This guy's reactions were quite amusing. And so finally, he just took the ball out of his kid's glove and just gave it to the chick just to get her out of there. Well,
Oh my gosh.
this chick has been roundly killed online, and people are trying to dox her, and they're trying to find out who she is and get her fired. This is 2025. It's not like the BBS is that kind of stuff. I mean, think about that single act.
Right.
And we don't. And the thing is, when a foul ball falls, you never know what happened in that melee.
Right. Right.
But at the end of the day, it shouldn't get someone's life ruined. Is the answer. But that's where we're at now. So we went from that kind of fighting to ruining of lives. It's not. It hasn't been a good journey, Bode.
No. Well, speaking of not a good journey, Aaron, let's talk about Doofus.
Also, speaking of ruining a life, here we go. Catchy tune. It's Doofus, Boat.
Yeah.
Let's just start off our look at Doofus right out of the gate, because I want to get this off my chest, and you sort of touched on it here. Doofus is a stupid name for a game.
Yes.
Doofus, if you name we've played Crap Man. We've played all these stupid games, right? What's the one, so Worm gets a spark or whatever? All these games that have these idiotic names, right? We have a new champion with this one. Could you make your game any less cool? Who's going to go buy this game? It's destined to fail. A horrible idea and whoever came up with this was an idiot. And someone's going to say oh, maybe his dog was, I don't care. If the whole game here is to make money, and this is a stupid name. And it takes away from the game, irregardless of how good the game is. I couldn't stand it. I never can understand why these people shoot themselves in the foot when you're trying to make a buck, Boat. Back me up here.
Well, okay, this game comes from Germany, okay? And maybe if I'm thinking about it from a kind perspective, maybe Doofus is a term of endearment in Germany.
Well, the problem is they sold this all over the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Pick a better name, Germans. By the way, if this is a term of endearment, I would be surprised. I think they knew exactly what they were saying. It's like some people name their dog funny things like stupid or whatever. That's fine. But I mean, listen, don't name your game Doofus. That's strike one before we even get to I haven't even read the year it came out. I just couldn't stand it. I had to get it off my chest. Well, it's so stupid.
I mean, on the one hand, naming your game Doofus is stupid. But on the other hand, You know, could it be a case of any publicity is good publicity? You know, like look at that game Doofus. Well, you know, like let's look at the back. Why would they call it Doofus? Oh, it's in my hand. Oh, I'm ringing it up. Oh, I bought Doofus. Do you think that ever happened?
No. Why don't you name your game Butt? You know, how about that? I mean, it could be. I mean, if that's how you're gonna play it, why? Or how about Steal This Game? Another dumb name. These are all dumb ideas. Don't listen to these. All right. With all that said, I'm going to try to give you an objective view of this. But I'm telling you right now, remember all those years ago when we did Top Banana? And before we even covered Top Banana, I was furious because I thought I'd heard the game was bad. You know, I was furious before I even played this game because I just heard it was a lot like crap, man. If you don't have the common decency to name your game something cool or at least neutral, it's like you're going out of your way to make your game look like a stupid game made by idiots. Mm-hmm. All right, with all that said, it's Doofus time, everybody. This was unleashed on the world in '93, published by Prestige. Hilarious, by the way. It's Prestige Games. This is our flagship game, Doofus. Yeah, Prestige. Yeah. You didn't live up to your name. They published just a couple games on the Amiga, Gotcha and Sword of Honor. The developer of this was Spinks. Spinks actually have done some stuff. A couple things we heard of. They did Future Shock, Magic Marble. I like this one, Master of the Town.
Master of the Town.
I want to be the master of the town. Real Genius, not based on the hilarious film, and a game called St. Thomas. Yeah,
that's a jazz song. St. Thomas, made famous by Sonny Rollins.
I will say the developer is if you go to the store in this game and you click on the globe, the storekeeper will tell you that's where Spinks lives if you look at the right place. The manager in this is credited as Walter Conrad. Responsible for Ketchum, Helicopter Mission, Lethal Zone, which we just played a couple weeks ago, and Mysterious Worlds. The coder, Maurice Penners and Raymond Penners, the Penners boys, the world-famous Penner boys, also worked on Future Shock and Real Genius. And the musician on this was Jerome Soade and Michael Soade, presumably another set of brothers, who worked on pretty much everything I just mentioned, plus a couple others, including Rockney's Island and the Temple of Enlightened Souls. But that sounds pretty good. This was an ECS-OCS joint. You can tell that from just looking at it. It's got all your favorite hallmarks of there, Boat, for Amiga platforming. The background sky, the kind of odd scrolling, everything you love. When this was released, it came on one disc and would set you back £29 and 99p to pick this bad boy up, Boater. Jesus, where to start on this? But so there's a backstory. Do you want to hear?
I want to hear the backstory. I didn't read it.
Okay, a good move. Tim was playing football with his dog, and suddenly there was a big bang, and he passed out. But he also had his dog with him, Doofus, the dog. So in case you're wondering where the game got its name, it's the dog's name is Doofus, the clumsy dog. Okay. Anyway, after much head scratching, Tim managed to deduce him and his dog had been mysteriously teleported to a strange world. That happens a lot in the Amiga platforms scene. That happens all the time. They got to find their way home. So if you take the role of Tim, you must run and jump across the platforms, followed by the ever-faithful Doofus. Should you or Doofus come into contact with any strange animals that roam the land, a life will be lost. Put a pin in that. There's also, I love the way this is phrased, there are also a number of abysses to fall down. You don't see abysses pluralized that often. Not to mention
often.
Man traps and spikes that will result in death if touched. The land is also littered with collectible goodies. Put a pin in that, too. Some of which reward bonus, and others which bestowed Tim strange powers.
Strange powers. Not necessarily useful powers or powerful powers, just strange powers.
So, Tim, you need to get home quickly because your mom would be angry if you were late for dinner. So you can tell Tim's taking this seriously. And
Hmm.
he's worried about that crap. So that's pretty much, I mean, when you think to yourself, I'm playing a game named Doofus. That's the kind of backstory you would expect for Doofus. Kid fell down. Kid heard a bang. Kid woke up in a mysterious world. Wants to get home for dinner. There you go. That's the plot in a nutshell. When this thing honed into view, Boat, are your first thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts were positive. You've got a game. Of course, the title's dumb. Okay, the
Yeah,
main character looks dumb. Okay,
he
these are
never
all.
blinks. He
Yeah,
looks like he's on acid.
these are all. I mean, this is not Nicky Boom bad. He is the ultimate bad looking Amiga platformer
Oh, I disagree with that.
mascot. Oh, you need to look at Nicky Boom again. You've forgotten how bad he looks.
Listen,
Um,
Yolanda is still walking around out there.
well, anyway, the first thing I tried was like, okay, we've got some platforming action. Okay, we've got music, we've got sound effects and music at the same time.
Yeah.
We've got a projectile. And so you're not just trying to avoid enemies, or you're not just trying to jump on their heads. You can also you got like it's like a bouncing ball, sort of like Magic Pockets or something like that. So you've got some nice parallax scrolling. You've got a lovely copper background. I'll be honest with you. I've seen AGA games that had less colors than this. I think they did a good job of taking the color palette on the Amiga, on the OCS chipset, and really doing a good job with it. So my initial impressions were positive.
Okay. Well, I was instantly negative because I just know I've played enough of these platforms. I knew where this thing was going, and so I'm not gonna lie. I was negative before we even looked into this game. I had a bad attitude. So just to get past the casuals here, this game has 12 color. This is the game talking, not me. In fact, this is the back box. This jump run games, 12 colorful levels set in a total of 3 different worlds, are waiting to be discovered by you. Loads of enemies and dangerous traps that can only be mastered with clever use of numerous bonus objects will make this mission difficult and exciting to complete. Are you ready for the challenge? No. Again, this game has 12 levels spread across 3 different worlds. The 3 different worlds are, they're not that. One's got snow and one's good, things. One's darker. But I mean, a lot of this game to me was in terms of as you progress, there was a lot of rinse and repeat action on this thing. So, Boatright, you play as you've got your character and you've got Doofus the dog. Now, let's talk about the thing that needs to be mentioned straight away. Everywhere you go, Doofus the dog will follow a few steps back. If Doofus the dog or Tim get hit by something, you're dead. Okay, that is right away. You've got to understand that. And Doofus the dog can get, if you barely miss getting shot, you can be darn sure Doofus the dog will be right there to suck up that bullet, like a bullet sponge. And so right away, the difficulty of this game, it goes up, I'd say exponentially, by the addition of this second character, who really doesn't do anything for you, with the exception of the bonus levels. We'll get to those in a minute. You go across this land. I will say this is not your, well, in some ways it is your typical European platform, because you go from one end to the other, picking up tons and tons of pickups, but there is no rule about having to pick up a certain amount of stuff.
Yeah, I would not.
Nice.
I would not call this a typical European platformer.
I would not. That's the reason I'm not going to call it that, because everything else in it, I would say, is very typical. The look is typical. The lead character is typical. The unbelievable amount of pickups are typical. It's just the way it's laid out, I would say, is typical. But you at least once you get to the end of this game, you're at the end. Boat mentioned that you've got a projectile. It's funny when you get behind stuff. It almost looks like he's peeing off of it. He throws these little balls of, I don't know, something. And the projectile you need, that thing will save your bacon, because there's a lot. This world is full of enemies. It's got enemies and pickups to beat the band. What did you think about the enemies you faced in this? And also, give me your thoughts, because I know you love having multiple tons of pickups to go through.
Well, the game reminds me a lot of Brian the Lion. Brian the
Yeah,
Lion,
yeah.
there are these enemies, and I don't even like to call them enemies. I put enemies in quotes because they just look like they're just folk going about their business. They're not necessarily aggressive towards you. You've got things that are jumping up and down. You've got things that are walking back and forth on platforms. You've got goldfish that will kill you at a touch. That's always a good thing. You got
Yeah.
snails.
Butterflies.
Yeah. And the enemies on the plus side, they're varied, they're well animated. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. But not but they don't really have an aggressive quality that I would associate with an enemy that wants you necessarily for your doom. What year did you say this game came out?
This game came out in '93.
In 93. So we are well into the 16-bit era platformer. Sonic, Mario, it's all been done a million times. This is like these guys never even touched a console platformer, and they just sort of looked at the Amiga games that had come before and said, hey, we can do something like this, because it's, like I said, it's very Brian the Lion-esque.
It's funny you should mention that, because you're not wrong. It does. It has a similar look to it, and a similar kind of dopey. Who's a dopier lead character, Brian the Lion or the kid?
Oh, Brian the Lion's way dopier than this guy.
The
But
kid
Nicky
looks
Boom
like
is
he's
still
on like
the worst.
electroshock or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. He's just got wide, creepy, unblinking eyes. That's the big
I think
thing.
he's got like an attention deficit issue or something, and he's just wired for sound. One of those kids that can't stop. And the dog is like, maybe that's just like, I don't know, helper dog. I don't know, because this guy looks blasted all the time. This game does have some unusual traits. If you duck and hit the space or the fire button, a window will pop up. Okay, and it gives you some odd, I guess, some odd choices here. You can make your dog disappear for a little while, is one of them. There's a bubble you could create. How often did you break into the weird menu level, Bo, to try that stuff?
Um, you know, I never made it to a shop. I went into
Oh
some
wow,
dog houses. I went into some
yeah.
dog houses, but the dog houses always had pickups. You only control the dog when you go into the dog house. I really dislike games like platformers with shops, because it seems like you spend all your time picking up all this money, and then like you can lose the item very, very quickly. I would much rather have items that you get by breaking blocks or by finding them throughout the world than having to save up money, because you're just never sure what you should be spending your money on, and you only get one chance, and it's kind of sucky.
Of course, I did get to the store, and there's like an old coot in there.
Yeah.
That's where the little Easter egg is about where Sphinx is from. And you can buy just a couple things. I never really had, to be honest with you, I never had that much money when I got to the store, because you have to. And, well, pickups in this are a whole different ball game, which we'll get to. But I always went in there pretty much tapped. But I did get there. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a problem with the store. I don't guess. I mean, I don't care. I did have more of a problem, and you mentioned it briefly with the bonus stage, where you go into the doghouse. The doghouse is dumb.
Hmm.
I went into multitude of doghouses, and also mentioned this game has a password feature for its levels, so I was able to skip around to some different levels. And you take your dog in, and there's a time limit, and you have to go through with the dog and pick up all the pickups in the doghouse. That's it. So you've got a time limit, and if the
Now,
time runs out
did
or
you
you
play
leave,
this? Did you
I'm
play
sorry.
this with cheats enabled?
It's funny you should mention that. I know I didn't play it with cheats enabled.
Okay, because I didn't have a WHD version that offered cheats either. So
Yeah, but like I said, it's got a password system for the levels.
Right.
That was good enough for me. But in the dog zone, as you go through in the dog houses, it gets I don't know, slightly trickier. There's never any enemies in there that I saw. You just go through a pit. I mean, it's a total tack on. You know, remember when you like in a Mario game where you get out a pipe and you might go into an area that has like a bunch of coins, you know,
Yeah.
and then you may have a time limit and maybe an enemy or some enemies in there. It's a lot like that, except not fun and there's no enemies. So it's
Well,
just,
it's funny. I'm watching a playthrough right now,
yeah.
and I was maybe I was just looking in the wrong place. But did you get the manual off of Hollow Light on this game?
No. No,
Okay.
I picked it up separately.
Because
Why?
I couldn't find it, and I didn't even realize that there's a key you can press on the keyboard to open up your item selection screen, so you can choose your item.
Well, you can pull it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can activate it with joystick too.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but because I kept trying to duck and hit it. Yeah. So the store, the bonus areas. To me, they're both. I'm not gonna say they tacked them on. I just don't think they serve a purpose. How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you could get some stuff to help you go further in the game, but to me, it didn't. I didn't think it was that big a deal. There are traps in the game, including spikes and boulders, and the boulders are a real problem. I don't like those. Most of the enemies you can pretty much knock out with your shooter, you know. But this is one of those games where you fail by. Most of the failures are just like you just stumble into a butterfly.
It's trial
or a
and
fig,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
or you jump into something that's got spikes on it and you get killed. So you've got to like sort of jump around it, you know.
Yep. But, this is a game that is like it's like a Mario-fied version of Rick Dangerous, where you have to memorize. Not only do you have to memorize certain enemy patterns, like to be able to get the dog through. But you also have to memorize the location. I mean, you can see the spike traps just barely, but you're going to hit them the first time no matter what. Because when you're playing a platforming game, what do you like to do in a platforming game? You like to run around and jump. You know, you were talking about that on the last show that you did with Brent. You know, you like when you play a platformer. The thing that you like to do, the thing that brings you joy, is running around and jumping around.
Yeah,
and it sucks that you can't do that with Abandon in this game because they hide stuff that will kill you.
Well, and also this is one of those games. I mean, I'm going to actually praise this game slightly here. You know, I don't have a problem with a slower paced platformer. Okay. And this, I hate to call them thinking man's platformers, but it's just because that doesn't apply. But when you have a game where you have to be very considerate in your jumps, it's a different element of gameplay that you don't always have. Now, so let's take, again, I hate to use this as an example, but it's always the one I think of. Let's think about, if you take a game like a Super Mario game, one of the 2 or 3, Mario does something very few games do. A lot of games will make you deliberately go through a level. And some games will make you run like a maniac through a level, right? But the Mario games and the really good platform games can do both. Right? This one's not that good. It can do one, but it can't do both. You can't run through these like a maniac. You've got to slowly, methodically go through them. I mean, super slow. I mean, you might sit there. Like, what would often be my strategy would be like get to the top of something, and I'd see butterflies and birds and crap jumping around, and I would just keep jumping up and down and trying to shoot it until I shot it. But you had to time your jump with the thing jumping. So inevitably, I would sit there for like a minute shooting while that thing jumped around until the time synced up and it died. Because otherwise, to jump forward with an enemy there, it's suicide. Because you're not going to be able to react quick enough. This is the kind of gameplay you're going to get here. There's a lot of that in this game. Something else you've got to consider, since you've got that dog, you may avoid the spike trap or the bear trap, but the dog might not. Something else I saw that happened to me more than once, if you got a real thin ledge that you jump on, when the dog jumps on it, he'll shove you off.
There's
not enough room.
Yeah.
And so the dog, it's like they took a game. I don't know. I like the idea. I sort of like the idea that your dog comes with you, but I think I'd like it better if the dog was just sort of in the background and didn't get hit.
Here's the way to do it. The way to do it is the way that Nintendo did it. There's a game that's very similar to this called Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Okay. And in this game, you play as Yoshi and you're carrying around baby Mario. Okay. If you get hit by an enemy, Mario screams, jumps out of the Yoshi's saddle, you have to track him down. Okay. Now, do I like that game? No, I hate that game.
Me too.
But
Hate it.
but that's a better way to implement sort of like if you're gonna make a platformer an escort mission, which is essentially what this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's a better way to do it, where you're carrying the object of your affection. If you get hit, you have to chase it down. You shouldn't have to be responsible for two characters 100% of the time, one of which you have absolutely no control over.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I'm not as keen. I don't like. I'm like you. I don't like that game either, and that's one of the reasons I don't like it, because you have to do that. But even that would be better than what you get here. I would prefer if you could just if the dog was just with you but wasn't really affected by shots. I would be
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah, if
That'd
he
be
was just there
totally
as
fine.
window dressing, that would be great.
Yeah, I
That'd be
mean, and
great.
occasionally you could use it for something like that. You can still do
Right.
the dog
Like
house
you
levels
know
and
what
stuff.
you know what would be awesome is if they turned this into a boy and his blob, where the dog, you feed the dog certain kinds of treats, and all of a sudden the dog grows real big like a balloon, and you ride the dog around. Or if you
Yeah.
feed the dog, some sort of like bean-based product, he has a gastrointestinal incident, and you can ride him across the level like a rocket. That would be awesome.
Wow. Wow. You putting your game developer hat on there, Boat. The
That's why
old
they paid
gas
me the
dog,
big bucks.
eh?
That's right.
Of all the things. Um, we didn't go into it much, but this game has it saw Super Frog. It was like, oh yeah? Or Zool. It's like, we'll show you pickups,
Mhm.
brother. You've got pickups everywhere. Non-stop pickups. Pickups for days. Pickups that after, I don't know, the first two levels, you just give up bothering.
Yeah.
Go get these pickups. They're point pick. This is another European special. They love these pickups. How grievous an offender was this game, Bo, when it came to pickups
Well, I don't mind.
and
To
your
me, it's like
pantheon?
you got to do one thing or the other. You can either have pickups that are meaningful, that give you stuff, that they either like give you coins and give you your spelling bonus or whatever, or you have pickups that are just for score. Because like when you have everything that does everything, like you said, everything just gets lost in the weeds, and you just don't feel like picking anything up.
Yeah.
I really hate the fact that this is, and again, this goes back to in 1993, still making a platformer game that's like a high score game. It's clear that the developers just, were not, they weren't keeping up with what was the zeitgeist in the genre. They should have just left out all of the high score of the score pickups and just left you with spelling bonus and collecting currency and some health, or there is no health. So just pick, or maybe an extra life or two scattered around. I would have enjoyed that a lot more than just the sort of cornucopia of crap that's littered all over every stage.
I will say another positive in the game's favor is that your mentions getting a bonus. Not only do you get the bonus, but there's a Mr. Do-like screen of all the characters, like having a party.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's cool.
I
like
love
that.
I love that scene. Because it's so cute. Someone took the time to draw that. What do you think the tunes in this, Boat?
I thought it was fine. I didn't think the
they're pretty
music was
good.
bad at all. Yeah, and you got music and sound effects. Yeah, I have no problems with the way this. Here are the things that I have no problems with. I have no problems with the way the game looks, minus the main character's wild stare. I've got no problems with the way the game plays. I thought that the platforming was okay. It was fine.
Yeah, I thought the control was fair.
Yeah, the controls are fair. I got no problems with the way that the enemies work, the way the enemies look, and I have no problems with the way that the levels are laid out. This is a very simple, again, it's like we've gone back to 1984 or 1985 with the launch of Super Mario Brothers. You got three levels with three worlds with 4 levels apiece. What I do have a problem with is the variety. I mean, they could have done so much more. If you're only giving your player 3 levels, Snow, that's okay. The darkness level, that's lame. They should have done something better in that second level.
It's funny because there are how many times have we said this on this show? There are the bones of something here
Yes.
that is. I mean, this is a basic platform game.
Mhm.
However, and the thing is that this is nowhere near the worst platform game we played on this system. Not even close.
No,
This
no.
is, I would say, upper middle of the road, frankly, if you
Yes,
want the truth.
absolutely.
All right. And so with that said, it's still not that good.
Mhm.
And it shoots itself in the foot over and over. And so I'm with you. The things I don't like about it, they could have just not done, and then you would have just had a basic, simple, but sort of fun platformer. I read a lot of reviews of the day on this, and one of the big complaints was the amount of money this cost. This was a full price game, and a lot of people there that I've read this several times, are like, listen, this is a 10-pound game,
Yeah.
tops. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be paying that much in 93. Now, and we both know in 93, the pickings were starting to be very thin. And so
Mhm.
you could probably get away with charging full price because you were the only thing on the menu. I don't know how many of these things were sold, but I did find some that you could pick up. But
Mhm.
so or people had picked them up. I didn't find any, but people. So I mean, it had to be available. I don't know the kind of numbers you gonna do in '93. To be honest with you, and I think that's something also we got to look at and consider when we look at these games. Like, when these games start creeping into the '90s, you're going to get less of an effort, frankly, because it's why go crazy?
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. I mean, Lionheart came out in 93.
Right, but I'm saying as the year, I'm not saying every game, but as the years roll on, you know, little
You're yeah,
tweaks and
yeah. I
stuff,
mean,
you're going to see less effort. You know,
the publishers that were able to make the leap to the consoles where they could make money and they weren't losing money because of piracy, they were getting wider exposure. You were sometimes left with the dregs, and you know, I think that's what we have here. It's unfortunate because I think in the right hands, you know, there are some skilled programming went on in this game. It's just that I think that the magazine reviews really focused on the fact that this was a full price game and that it was really kind of retreading a lot of tropes that had gone out of style in the platforming genre.
and it does have. It's got the spike traps. It's got the
Hmm.
loose planks on the bridge. It's got the, all the stuff I would say they broke no new ground here, with the exception of maybe the dog, and the dog just wasn't used to to do anything. So to
Hmm.
me, the dog was worthless. Speaking of the magazines of the day, boat, the people over at Lemon rate this about a 5.88.
I think
So
that's low. I think that's low.
well, yes, I would say a few points low. I don't think it's that bad. There weren't that many reviews on this. The magazines of the day were all over the map. I mean that literally. Amiga Action gave this a 30%.
Yeah.
Amiga Joker gave this a 69%. Amiga Power famously gave this a 4%. And the one clocked in at a 53%. The average magazine rating, 39%. And I think a lot of this, and we've talked this before at the magazines, their patients were wearing thin. I think, and the thing is, in '93, and you mentioned it, you're looking around at your buddies, and they've got all this stuff. And what do you got? You got Doofus. You got to bring
Hmm.
Doofus to your buddy's house and say, "Hey, let's check this out."
Right.
You're not. So yeah, and I looked at this also came out on the PC, and the reviews of that were pretty similar. Do we
Mhm.
get any Discord action, Boater?
A lot of Discord action this week, Aaron.
Really?
Settle
Okay.
in, settle in.
All
First of
right.
all, we got a review from Pajako. He says some pretty graphics and good music, albeit a little generic, and controls that work just fine. Should be a good game, right? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. Game and level design massively let the game down. With lots of cheap deaths, even playing carefully with infinite lives, I burned through a truckload of doofuses, or doofi. Then we have the dog, a cool idea that lacks execution and ends up making the game more frustrating. Also, your dog doesn't get protected by the shield potion. Why? And again, with the reverse control potions, only here
Oh,
it
I
is
forgot
one
about
that
that.
doesn't run out and affects the weapon menu. Possibly a bigger game that was cut back to hit a deadline. Doofus is one to avoid. 4 out of 10.
Let's jump in real quick there before
Okay.
you move on. He mentioned this, and I've got to mention I believe it was a purple bottle. Okay,
Mhm.
if you get the purple bottle, it reverses your controls.
No good.
Okay? And guess what? This game has 4 million multicolored crap.
Yeah.
So you know how the number of times you can hit that easily many times. Now the game, I looked in the docs. It's like, don't worry. If you get hit with this, just go find another purple bottle. You're good to go. Are you? You ever play a game like this with the controls flipped sideways? That was a dumb idea. I don't know if you got to that, but he mentioned that. I totally forgot about that. But that also get that out of here. Horrible. Carry on.
Fred Onions writes, Doofus is the kind of game your aunt buys you thinking it's cute, and you act grateful and pleased, only then to sneak outside to put sugar in her gas tank. Anywho,
wow, Fred.
Anywho, you play as some poor goober who was jumped by an evil sect of tree-hugging lunatics who surgically implanted a permanent smile on his face, like a budget Amiga version of the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your dog witnessed the whole thing, was shocked into silence, and now clings to you like a furry PTSD barnacle as you take revenge. Revenge in this case means waging war on Mother Nature. As you battle endless numbers of creatures, you also have to make sure your dog doesn't get hit, because if he dies, you die. This makes the gameplay frustrating when you pull off a perfect jump, only to have a frog touch your dog, then it's instant death. But play it to the end, and you get one of gaming's most epic twists. Mother Nature was never in charge. No, it was the silent, trembling companion at your side, the one you swore to protect. He turned out to be the mastermind. The trauma was a bluff. Every frog, bird, and bug was just another pawn in his grand design. Your dog wanted your broken, smiling forever as his grinning puppet, a true doofus. Score 10 out of 10.
Whoop. Fred was all over the map with that review.
Joe Ochwat writes, stop me if you've heard me say this before. Oh, you can't. I'll continue. Years ago, this guy and I published a terrible local music magazine in the Chicago area. I think we were trying to be a cross between Rolling Stone and Maxim, failing at both. At one point, I came up with an idea for each month's CD reviews. We'd roll a pair of dice, and that's how many words we get to use for each review. And that's what I'm going to do for these user-submitted reviews. All right, so he rolled a 66. Who's Doofus? The guy, the dog, me. My initial thought was, looks like James Pond, especially with all the themeless pickups scattered everywhere. Graphics and sound are above average. Gameplay, annoying for me. I fell to my death constantly. Got past the first level, but without a dedicated jump button, that was enough. Still not the worst game I've played. 5 out of 10 bear traps. So he's going to roll 2 dice every week, and that's the number of words that he's going to write in his review.
It scares me that this guy did a magazine under that same premise. That's a horrible. What if you roll snake eyes?
And finally, right off of Babylon 5, Garibaldi writes, what a nice surprise this game is. Would have never touched it due to the stupid name. It's easy, short, innovative, and has a password system. Exactly what I need in 2025 for a few hours of fun and not willing to play the same level dozens of times. Running through it is the wrong approach. Check slightly hidden obstacles, time your steps, and take advantage of the straightforward extra systems with a chance to freeze or blow up the enemies or float in a bubble over the scenery. Annoying is the reverse steering one stumbles every once in a while. Yeah. Overall, this could have been a superb game with a few more levels and a bit more polishing here and there. Amusement level, 8 out of 10.
So positive review.
Yeah, Garibaldi liked that one. So yeah, that's going to do it for this week's reviews, Aaron.
I don't know where, this is one how many shows we've done? 5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done probably 100 platformers on this system, right? This is another one. That's basically all I can say. Insert stupid mascot, a ludicrous amount of pickups, and fundamental flaws, and you get Doofus.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
Amiga News.
Campbell Trail
All right, Aaron, it's time for this week's Amiga news, and it's finally here, the Outrun Amiga edition. So, this has been one of the long-running jokes of the Amiga community, how bad the Amiga version of Outrun is. Well, the latest port of Outrun, version 0.091, has been released. Now, this is important to know. Okay, this is it's going to it uses the original 68,000 assembly code, and it will run on a mid-spec Commodore Amiga. Okay, so this is yes. So this is not an emulator. Okay, it's not based on Cannonball, MAME, or any existing project. This is a ground up rewrite in assembler with a focus on performance. So it require you to source the original graphics and audio data from the arcade ROM. These are not exclusive. You must source them yourself. But it says that well, yeah, you're right. A mid-spec, anything that requires an accelerator card, I would not call a mid-spec Amiga.
An 030 at the bare minimum. I've heard.
Yeah. So, what do you think about this, Aaron? Is this something worth talking about, or is this just a nothing burger?
Well, I mean, it's something, all right? Because, and all credit to this fellow. What's this guy's name that pulled this off? I mean, listen, he's doing the Lord's work there. I'll give him credit. But I think the dream, I don't think this cures the Amiga nightmare at all, because you're running this on, like, I was listening to people talk about this, running this on like the fastest Amiga there is. Then you can get okay speeds. Okay,
right.
Everything else is it's playable-ish. Okay, and moving upwards. They're recommending. But don't get me wrong. Again, it's an incredible act of programming. I'm trying to put the guy over, but at the same time, I'm not going to feign interest in this thing, because we get into the point now where you're going to run this on an actual Amiga. You've got to have an ultra modern Super Amiga, and the reason everybody hated Outrun is because the Amiga 500 couldn't run it, and this shows you why. To run this, you need an Ultra Amiga. I'd like to see something where the Amiga can run something like on a stock, at the bare minimum, a stock 1200. I'd like to be able to see it run something, that would be resembling an Outrun game.
Right.
Added bonus, the whole shtick where you've got to go and get the ROMs and stuff. I mean, why are we even bothering with that? I mean, my God. That's something else. When I read that, I'm like, are you kidding me? I've got to go do all this other gimmicky stuff.
Yeah, if I'm going to go get stuff from the ROM, guess what? I'm just going to play the ROM. I'm going to play the arcade ROM on my MAME. So
there you go. Now, Mitsuyama just said if you've got the A500 Mini, you're good to go, which makes sense because, again, we've talked about, remember a couple weeks ago, this is really similar to that Settlers 2 story we ran a couple weeks ago, and they said, like, to run this thing, you've got to have an Amiga that runs with, like, uranium, right? Remember that? But it's going to ship with the A500 or the A1200 Maxi, whatever that thing's called. They said don't call it the Maxi, but that's what everybody calls it. So the fact that this runs on the 500 Mini just tells you what you need to know. Those machines are capable of emulating one of the machines you need to run this game. But at that point, like you said, I could just probably I bet I could load up MAME on the A500 Mini and just play the full version that's on there. So you get to that weird world where you're like, what am I doing? This is the kind of game where, like, if we're at Boat Fest and, like, Mobius rolls up, right, with that hot rod Amiga of Incredible Doom that he's got, and then he puts this in there, and then you go over and go, oh, look at that. Like, it's a novelty, but it's not an everyday player for your average person. And so I'm a little let down by that. I'd like to see something where, like, it doesn't have to be Outrun, but something where someone does something to give the A500. I mean, Lotus ran something that looked pretty good, Lotus 2 on the 500, something along those lines. I'm not asking for the moon here.
Right.
But with all that said, this is a fun project, and to the people that have these sorts of Amigas, I'm sure it's a pretty neat deal.
Our next story, Aaron, is about The Gate. The Gate is a new game that is an action-adventure game highly inspired by Impossible Mission and Project Firestart. Now, Aaron, were you a big fan of Impossible Mission on the C64 back in the day?
Well, it was on everything. I believe it. I'm pretty sure they had an Atari release.
Okay. Okay.
Not I mean, it's one of those games where you throw it on, and then you're like, you look at it. But in all honesty, if you don't have the docks, you're boned. And even if you do have the docks, it's a real tough game. So mostly Impossible Mission, especially Impossible Mission 2, where you just take the guy, throw him down the elevator shaft or whatever. That was always a good time. Or listen to the intro. But I wouldn't say I was a big time player. What about you?
No, I hate it. I hate Impossible Mission. I think it's a dumb idea. I hate the way the guy does a somersault leap every time he jumps.
That was cool back in the day, though. I mean, I know you're younger, but and when I saw that, I was like, man, that's pretty awesome,
Right. So this is a game that looks like it takes that same sort of split level play field, but it introduces a dialogue system, a bunch of different terminals. So if you're one of the people that enjoy interacting with sort of retro looking computer terminals in the middle of your game, and I know there are people like that, this one looks like it might be fun. Aaron, what do you think about this footage?
Well, it's hard to judge, isn't it? I mean, I will say you're right. They simulate sort of that old school monochrome monitor. I kind of like that. And if they took, I mean, this might be good. I'll be honest with you. This looks like it might be something that I might get into. So, it's different too. You don't see these sort of games come around anymore. Look at all the bullet points on this. Clearly, there's a lot to this game. And so the demo's out now on itch, I believe, Bo. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you can check it out. And if you dig it, let us know in the comments.
We may be playing these games in the future. It makes it interesting to look at them now.
That's right. This is one I just found this morning, Aaron. This is a new essay written on the datagoob.se. So this is a Swedish site.
Oh.
And it's written because the demo scene was recently proclaimed a UNESCO Living Cultural Heritage in Sweden, following several other European nations. So there is UNESCO protection on the demo scene. But this article is about how the demo scene is unfortunately dying because the people that were involved in the demo scene are getting older and is sort of dropping out of the scene. So, I mean, Aaron, how do you feel about this? And have you ever been part of a hobby or something that just kind of went away because the people that were part of it just got too old?
I think we may be a part of one of those right now.
You might be right. You might be right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was always I wasn't a huge mover and shaker in the old time radio people, but that sort of thing is sort of the numbers are dwindling, and we talk about the list of stuff like the Coco. Where you've got any of these games, like me and Brent have covered a lot of old computers on ARG, and so every once in a while, someone will come up and be like, "Hey, I used to have one of those things." You think to yourself, "Man, who's still holding the torch for this stuff? They've got to be running out of gas." So I think a lot of the stuff we do are dying. This was an interesting find here. I never really thought about the demo scene dying, but I mean, of course it is, because I think the demo scene was running wild in an era where the hardware that they used ran wild. I think it's and I think as a demo artist, you stick to that older hardware because that's where the challenge is. The modern stuff, no one if you do something, we see like modern stuff, you see everything. You see like Cyberpunk, or you see all this graphical fidelity that like it was not as impressive as it was when you did it on like a ZX or whatever, an Amiga. So it makes sense that would be dying because there are less people that are interested in the old hardware. There are less people that know how to program it like a demo scene guy would. Maybe that sort of style of music has gone away as well. The people that can make that music.
God, that would be great.
Oh, I love that. Come on, Bo. I like that.
You're
music.
a dance trash. Get me out of here.
Hey, listen. I would go right to the disco, brother.
Next up, Aaron, our next story. This is not really a story, but sometimes I just like to look around on YouTube for the most expensive things that are sold that are Amiga related. Yeah. And this was something that I'd never heard of before. And I was wondering if you could give me some information on on this Amiga 4000 TX computer. I don't know what TX means.
I have no idea what did this thing sell for $4,200? Holy smokes! That's Australian. So is that $2,700? I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I don't think I've heard of the the 4000 TX. This must be a pretty rare machine. So your guess is as good as mine. Here's the listing here. It tells you what's in it.
My guess. Okay, so I'm looking at this thing now. This looks like a custom motherboard that emulates an Amiga 4000. So maybe a 4000 was reseeded. You know, they've reseeded all the chips on this, which is a terrifying prospect. But anyway, this thing sold, Aaron, for $2,753 US. This comes out of Australia. And shipping to the United States is a low $327. So if you wanted this thing and you were in the States, you better be ready to pay. Of course, if you want this thing and you're anywhere, you better be ready to pay. But this is a cool looking machine. It reminds me of one of those next gen Amigas, but this is old school Amiga in a new school case. Pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, yes. I'm like you. The thought of transferring this stuff to a donor board, for transferring stuff from one board to a new board, especially at this level, because you're talking the amount of money you could instantly screw up would be.
Yeah.
You have to be very confident in your skills. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And one would wonder. So this guy's selling this thing for went for $2,800 US, give or take. Like, I wonder if it was worth it. Because if you think about the prospect of doing that, I would want more. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of man hours that went into doing that. And then the testing on this, holy smokes, you can imagine how long that would take. And if you screwed anything up, you got to go there and troubleshoot it. I'm glad I'm not doing that sort of work anymore. But I'll be honest with you, that'd be madness.
Yeah. Our next story, Aaron, really is not Amiga related, but it's a podcast. A while ago, you lamented to me that you could not find any good retro gaming podcasts. And I was like, Aaron, you just are not looking hard enough. There's got to be good retro gaming podcasts out there. And this past week, I was doing a lot of driving around and I was running out of stuff. And I wanted to listen to something lighthearted. I wanted to listen to some retro gaming stuff. And I looked around and I listened to a bunch of shows, and you are exactly right. There is not much out there that I enjoyed listening to. However, I did find one podcast that I am now a super fan of, and this is the 10 Pence Arcade Podcast version 2.0. So I listened to this back in the day, actually, when I went to Thailand in 2014. I downloaded a bunch of these and listened to them, and then I kind of forgot about the show. And just this past week, I picked it back up, and then this is a new version of the show. It's a monthly show, which is not good for me because I want more. But they do, they talk about what arcade games they've been playing. They talk about news. Then they have a monthly game where they solicit high scores from their listenership. And unlike our show, they actually get actual audience support for their high scores. They read them out on the air. And they're funny guys. There's just two of them. There's not an 8 million man panel like so many shows. The audio quality is decent. I came away real impressed, and I'm going to become a regular listener and contributor to their high score contest. They're doing a game this month, Aaron, that I've never played before. And I sat down last night before I went to bed, and I played it for about an hour. It was so fun. It's called Hopper Robo. Have you heard of Hopper Robo before?
I don't think so.
It's a Sega game from 1983, right in the golden era of arcade games. It was so much fun. It's a single screen platformer, Donkey Kong-esque, but there are different elements. I mean, it's not exactly like Donkey Kong, but it's one of those type of games. So much fun. And so I'm getting ready to submit my high score. Actually, I'll probably play it a bunch more before I do that. But if you're looking for a good podcast, retro gaming podcast, and you've already exhausted all of the Brent and Aaron shows, check out the 10 Pence Arcade Podcast. It's great.
I will say I listened to the original 10 Pence Arcade back in the day, and I liked it. This is way back, and so I haven't, but I didn't know about the 2.0 boat. So I'll give that one a whirl.
All right, Aaron, we got one more news story, and it's the Amiga Game Jam 2025. Thank you, Aaron, for making me aware of this, because I was not aware. This is Amiga Cami She has kicked this thing off. There's 2 months left, 2 months, 23 days left. It's a short time frame. I guess submissions opened way back in May, so this thing's already been running for a while. Return to the arcade. This time the challenge is to create an arcade game in the style of a game that's worthy of its own arcade cabinet. So I wish Cammy all the luck in the world, and I can't wait to play some of these games on future episodes of Amigos.
It's amazing that I didn't realize it was out that long either. Cammy needs to get a better publicist over there because I didn't know anything about it. I noticed it last week. But you're right. Even in May, with a close date of December, you're going to have to, and it's December 1st, I think, is the date closes. So if you're a programmer, you got to really hit the gas to get through it. I like the idea of an arcade. I mean, there are plenty of good avenues to go down when you're making an Amiga arcade game. You can do it. You can probably do them pretty quick. We just played. I just played a bunch of Happy Coding and the Midnight Brew stuff on the Friday Night Disaster stream this past week. Now, I'm not saying Happy cranks this stuff out in 5 months, but I mean, you could take a simple concept and put it down and make a fun game, especially if you try to center yourself in something like the early 80s. There's a lot of good food for thought that you could go down that line that doesn't exist on the Amiga. So I am excited about this. I'm anxious to see how it turns out. So good luck, everyone that's participating in the Game Jam.
That's going to do it for this week's news, Aaron. What do we have coming up next on Amigos?
Let's find out. Can it be any stupider than Doofus? I hope not. Oh, yes. This was your idea, Bo. Get into it.
Well, we've done Lotus 2. We've done Lotus 3. But somehow, in almost 520 episodes of Amigos, we've yet to cover the first Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge. So this is the time. This is the moment. We'll be covering it next week.
It's the funny thing is it's different than the others in a lot of ways, and not necessarily. It's comparable, I think. So it should be a lot of fun to get back into it. It's one I've played quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. And as always, guys, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Amigos podcast gives you access to our Discord server, plus a cool magnet and a card at the end of the year at Christmas time. We just released a new Amigos supporters t-shirt. You can check that out at amigatees.com. And that's going to do it for this week's show. So thank you as always for listening. We will see you next time. And until then, adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.